All right. I guess now that we have a decent amount of people here, we can kind of kick it off, and then everybody who misses it can just catch the recording. Like I mentioned, this week will probably be a little bit of a short week. At the end of the day, we're sort of heads down just trying to get Pyrex ETH across the finish line. I think we can, provide some updates on that later in the call, but that's kind of I think this has been like the longest period between releases that we've had in like a year and a half, which, is a good sign because it means we're focused on things, but it's just a little different because we went from, having an announcement every like 2 weeks of something going out to now where, focusing on like a really big product launch and making sure we get it all right. So we're not being quiet for lack of working. We're being quiet for trying to get, a big thing finished. Really quickly, before we dive into our own updates, just want to give an update on the balancer vulnerability situation. So I think I saw a question or two about it earlier in the week when this happened, but I think Balancer Labs discovered what they considered a critical vulnerability that affected some number of pools. I don't know how many it was. I think no funds at all were actually exploited. I think they did a really good job of getting out in front of it, and they had sort of emergency functionality that let them protect those pools. And I just wanted to be very clear on this call that we were also completely unaffected by this as far as I know. And then on top of that, we were sort of in the middle of pulling the Butterfly Geom liquidity off Balancer anyway, and I think we've successfully done that. Never just dropped off, but I was gonna let him touch on that for a second. But if he doesn't join back, that's fine. But yeah, we're unaffected. I hope I'm pretty sure everybody else is unaffected, so I think we're all good. I just wanted to be clear on that since it seems like even some of the best are suffering a few exploits these days, and it's one of the reasons we are being extra careful when it comes to Pyrex ETH and where it's at in the auditing process as well. So with that out of the way, I can kind of go into some updates. So one update that's not product related is that Sammy went on a podcast and dropped a little bit of alpha with Jack Newald, or however you say his last name. I don't know if there's anything you want to touch on with that, but I dropped the link in Town Hall text chat. I don't know. How was it, Sammy? How was your podcast tour?
Good. He like a lot of people actually don't like him. I'm not sure why. But I think he's a cool guy. And he's like a big supporter of Redacted. So we've been meaning to get something in place, but there's actually a few other podcasts too that we're just vaulting. And as testnet comes up, in the coming days or week here, like we'll start launching some more of them and getting the word out and stuff. I think it's pretty quiet in DeFi right now. I think a lot of the attention is in other places, but yeah, it should be like a good sort of like marketing push for us. Some of these guys who I didn't actually know were supporters of us, just like chatting with them, getting their support, and making the rounds on Twitter and whatnot.
Yeah, now's like the best time. I mean, I imagine like 10% of the total users that are left in DeFi are probably in this call right now. So like now is a really good time to like get the attention of a lot of core users. And so yeah, I think we're not going to be launching in the middle of a crazy bull market, but we will be launching in the middle of a market where it's good to fight for attention of the people who are going to be around 2 years from now or whatever else. So it is good timing. Ark asks, and maybe this is a never question, will the balancer ETH pool be restarted? I missed the first few minutes. Do you mean just the balancer liquidity pool that we have in general? Like, are we going to launch new liquidity there? I'm not actually sure. Never, do you have any thoughts to add there? If you're talking, I can't hear you.
I think. Hey, let's see if he. Yeah, I think
mic's not working.
Right. Yeah, you can hear me. You can hear me though, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think the plan right now is to focus a lot more of the efforts on Arrakis. It seems as though like they will have a token incentive sort of scheme coming soon. It's been going really well for us. We've been making a lot more money on Arrakis than we have been on Bouncer, for example. And I think that, it probably makes more sense to repurpose a lot of that ETH that we would be putting into Bouncer for the butterfly pool into PX ETH liquidity, or even like an L2 sort of butterfly pool. I don't know if we need 3 butterfly pools on mainnet. I think at the moment, like, everyone internally is happy with just Curve and Uniswap, but if that's not the case for whatever reason, like, we can talk more about it, right? But I think everyone would much prefer if PX ETH liquidity was deep, or if there was to be a 3rd butterfly pool, that it would exist on an L2 or something, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think like we'll definitely be back on Balancer when it comes to the launch of PX ETH, because I think breadth of liquidity is important there as well as depth. So the more places that PX ETH liquidity exists, the better. What is Uniswap pool address, or just use an aggregator? I don't actually have it handy. I think using an aggregator should probably be fine. I'm pretty sure the current Arrakis setup does pretty well.
I think it's on the Arrakis site.
Yeah.
Like the Arrakis contract address and then the Uniswap pool address.
Yeah, and I imagine like there's no reason that like an aggregator wouldn't pick it up, right? Because Arrakis is just deploying liquidity to Uniswap, which is on basically every aggregator, so you should be good. Never, your mic is still having issues. I'm not sure what's causing it. Anyway, so we'll keep moving along, and then when Never figures it out, he can chime in with whatever he wants to add. But yeah, so moving on to Hidden Hand stuff. We actually crossed a pretty big milestone. I think it was this week. What, it was the 21st this week? Yeah. So this past weekend, I think, is when we actually crossed it. But we hit sort of 23 million in cumulative bribe volume on Hidden Hand, which is pretty cool. And I guess it depends on where you look. So Dune says 23 million, and the homepage says 24.4 million. I will let you guys decide which number you want to believe. I think they're just different accounting methods, so they use different price feeds. Like Dune had an update.
I think it's Luna. I think it's Luna.
Yeah, whatever it is, affected the total number. But either way, 24 million. It's semantics at this point. But yeah, pretty exciting to see. I think the Balancer and Aura partnerships have played a huge role in that total cumulative volume. I think that's no secret at all. So pretty exciting to see. I think we've talked about this a lot, but if Hidden Hand is performing this well in the current market, I imagine it'll perform even better in the bull market. And we kind of got a taste of that during the Luna days and all of that, whenever they were bribing an unbelievable amount of money. And I think every bribe market is kind of feeling something similar right now. I was reading a couple threads on Twitter the other day, and it looks like even Curve and like convex bribes are down as well. And that's just because some of the biggest players are either no longer bribing, or in the case of some of them, just no longer exist because they blew up. So plus HH bribes seem to be picking up again. Last week's bribe volume was the highest. Yeah, I mean, Hidden Hand bribes are picking up again, and I think we're starting to see like more protocols that are new committing to bribes very early on. I think pretty much every project that launches who needs liquidity for something sees the importance of bribes, and they're allocating resources towards those. There is a new bribe protocol coming on ETH, Wombat. It's called Wombat. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Sammy, do you know what that is? Wombat.
I'm assuming Ancient, you're talking about like a bribe market for Wombat, the BSC project. If not, let me know. It's called Wombat. Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar. Like, truth be told, like, actually, there's a few of these projects out there right now. Like, some of them like integrate themselves. Some of them like spin up like a side project and sort of do them. But like, again, the whole thesis actually behind Hidden Hand was that everyone can actually, every single person here we can launch our own DeFi projects. And if we were to all create our own individual AMM pool where we all have to pull in ETH and pair it against our token, not on Uniswap, just one liquidity pool all on our own smart contracts, the net effect would actually be worse than if we were all to just use Uniswap, right? People going for this like siloed approach, this try and siphon off like whatever value they can from the sort of like vertical that we're playing of bribes, will actually not have the same effect that you would have with integrating with Hidden Hand, right? I think this is obviously I can't speak with facts here because it hasn't been long enough, but I think we can all assume that like, you know, a project like Bunny wouldn't have as many bribes as if they were to do it themselves, or for that matter, right? Like the way most things go in this space is that it ends up being a consolidation towards the winners. Right now, we're the clear winners. And, you know, if you were to just, you know, feature parity is just impossible with Hidden Hand also at this point after V2 and stuff, right? So I'm not too concerned. We talked to Wombat. Actually, never mind. You said it's just called Wombat. Yeah, like, you know, we're coming to more chains. We have all the features now. Like for someone to like fork us now, it's near impossible, especially considering like the network effects we bring along with it. I guess like Karn, actually, you know, a few weeks ago also, there was a few of you here, some familiar faces, obviously, that were on this community call where we only had like 10 people show up because it was like, we just announced it like an hour before it happened. And there we leaked some alpha about like a new Hidden Hand feature that's coming out that's actually like really fucking sick. Like, you know, little things like this, like it's just impossible to do it on your own as like some side project where, you know, like someone doesn't want to pay the fees or something, right? And you know, they'll all come home eventually. That's kind of my view on it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you also have to account for like some of the relationships we have are exclusive partnerships sort of solidified by governance. So like that is also extremely important, right? So like the Aura situation, for example, they've committed to using Hidden Hand exclusively, and a new like up and coming protocol trying to compete with Hidden Hand is going to have a hard time competing if, you know, some of the biggest bribers in the space are in exclusive agreements. So that's just a thing to consider. And like Sammy mentioned, it's not super difficult for us to, let's say a competitor launches and they like have a feature or whatever that we don't have. It's relatively straightforward for us to just implement that feature if partners really want it. And that's exactly what we did with Hidden Hand V2, for example. Swaggy A brings up AIP 42 for Aura. Yeah, that's a good point. I was actually going to cover that here in a second. So the Aura folks just passed AIP 42. It's a long ass proposal. I'm not going to sit here and read all of it, but the sort of outcomes are at the end of it. And one of the big outcomes is that there is an increase in voting incentive capacity by about 15%, or approximately $60,000 worth of voting incentives per cycle, which is just good news for us. Then a decrease in net Aura supply being distributed, and then they also implemented some sort of cap of Aura minted against BAL. So yeah, and you can kind of see some examples in there about like how this will affect the APY of certain pools. I think this is an optimization thing for them. So for example, the RETH pool will go from like 4.7% APR to about 5.28%, etc. So pretty cool to see. I mean, I think Aura is constantly doing work to make sure their bribes are as optimal as possible, because if they aren't, they get quite expensive pretty quickly. And they've also worked with us on some features, two of which Never kind of teased in the chat, where I think they'll be users. So cool to see. But yeah, any questions on Hidden Hand stuff before we move on? Good. All right, I think we're good. So moving on to Pirex. Pirex also hit a new milestone that actually took a while to hit. I think for a long time we were kind of stuck at this like 2.8 million CVX deposited number. Actually, let me rewind real quick. So is Hidden Hand the only platform that Aura is using? I believe that we're the only platform they're using now, as per a governance proposal that passed. I don't even remember when that was, maybe a month or two ago. It's on our forum somewhere, so you can see that, you know, with the release of Hidden Hand V2, they made a commitment to using Hidden Hand exclusively. So anyways, back to Pirex. Pirex Convex has been stuck at this like 2.8 million CVX deposited number, and whether I think it was not, I think it might have been last week actually. We ended up crossing 3 million finally, which is sick. That's 3% of the total convex supply that's locked in Pyrex Convex. And I don't remember the website. Maybe it's like convexwars.xyz or something like. I don't remember the exact website, but there's this kind of like leaderboard that shows some of the top liquid wrappers and stuff like that. And especially now with Badger sort of exiting, yeah, DeFi Wars. That's what it's called. Is it DeFi Wars.xyz? Is that what, yeah, it is. Okay, so we can look at Convex Wars. Yeah, here we go. So if you're wondering what I'm looking at, you can look at this link here. So yeah, if you look at Convex Wars, we are the clear, Pyrex is the clear market leader in when it comes to liquid wrappers for Convex, especially I think Badger has effectively wound down their product, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the really important thing here is not only the total TVL, but the peg for the liquid wrapper itself. So as you can see, Pyrex Convex has one of the best pegs by a pretty significant margin. Like it's not even close. I think obviously Badgers looks pretty good at this point, but I think that might be a result of them starting to wind down the product, and they only account for a relatively small amount of VLCVX locked. So pretty cool to see. I think Pyrex Convex has been a really good example of a product having product market fit, and it even looks like Pyrex Convex is a top 3 holder of Convex in general. Now that I'm looking at the top holders, so C2TP is number 1, Frax number 2, and then Pyrex Convex is number 3. Speaking of Pyrex Convex, there was also the Prisma vote that a lot of people were asking about. We don't have Funky here to talk about it. Did we end up voting for Pyrex Convex?
Yeah. yeah, we ended up voting because it was technically a bribe. Oh, thank God. Yeah, it was like we usually don't interfere with governance proposals, but this one was basically a bribe, so it kind of made sense for us to vote yes and maximize the APY for our users. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But like
so, go ahead. Is there more you wanted to add?
No, just saying that we generally do not use TVL to vote for any governance.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So this is kind of like a one-off occurrence. I think, not voting on this would have been just like dumb, especially given the proposal was like passing by, I think, first off, I think it was like the most voted on proposal ever. And like, obviously if people are incentivized to vote, they turn out to vote. And it was non-controversial. So it made sense for us to vote. And I think we'll figure out how to distribute the Prisma or what to do with it or all of that maybe at a later date. But the important thing, I guess, for now is that we did vote. So to some extent, we will be receiving the Prisma as a result of that vote, and then figuring out what to do with it is a bridge we can kind of cross later. Given that PX is successful, we should expand to PX Aura 2. I mean, I think that's something that was talked about a while ago. I don't know. It's kind of hard, and maybe Sammy has thoughts on this, but like with PXGMX, for example, it's pretty difficult to grow these types of products, especially if you have like some sort of responsibility to maintain the peg, because then you have to have a liquidity pool that you have to make sure has proper liquidity. Otherwise, users get like really frustrated. So for example, the GMX team requested that, especially early on, that we didn't have direct liquidity for PXGMX with GMX, and I think that caused like not a bad user experience, but a wonky one. And people didn't prefer it, and as a result, that sort of throttled growth of the whole product. So, not saying it won't happen, not saying it can't happen, just saying like it's something we'd have to think about and consider. And on top of that, we're still very much in the middle of trying to launch Pyrex ETH and trying to move towards Dinero, and so yeah, we'd have to weigh whether or not that kind of like strategically makes sense, because you have to remember, for every product that we launch that potentially takes away attention from something else that we're trying to launch, we have to make sure that trade-off makes sense. I don't know, Sammy, if there's anything you wanted to throw on top of that.
Actually, I think it's a good thing for Kanye to talk about.
Or Con.
About this idea that we've been working on internally about how like basically like chasing delegates is actually more beneficial for everyone than chasing lockups, right? Just from a capital efficiency perspective, and also from like a yield and fees and incentives perspective. Maybe you want to talk about it a bit, Karan.
Yeah, and maybe just to like set the stage a little bit, like you'll see I guess like this like very strong effect with like all the wrappers for the various like Solidity tokens. Like when things are going well, like yes, these perform very well and like they have very deep liquid pools, but like once the tokens start falling in price, the bribes start dropping, like you'll see like sometimes the wrappers for yeah, the Solidity forks they go like 80-90% off pick because everyone's trying to exit, and it just becomes a very like, I'd say like not good for the users because like then like a lot of people are still trapped in these wrappers, so like technically they're not liquid. You'll be like taking a huge haircut to get out, and also like the cost of maintaining these pools is always a very big performance drag, right? And people will just say, okay, well, like if these things are not liquid anyways, and like you're taking a fee, which is like part platform fee, and a part of the voting power is directed to the liquid wrappers on like pool, then like these become like not very good or sustainable products or like even competitive products in the long term. So you know, something we're thinking about is like, hey, along the lines of what we're doing for Aura, along the lines of what you may have seen for the Llama Air Force Union, when possible, when the voting power of these VE tokens can be delegated to someone, we can help manage that. We can do the optimal like votes across all the different gauges to make sure you're getting the max amount of bribes, and also like we can help make these bribe markets efficient. Then yeah, I guess like that is like I guess we can go a little further. Yeah. So like the clear use case is there. It's going to improve the UX. So the users just delegate to us, set and forget, and their rewards will be there. We're hoping that for some of the different markets we can go a little further. We have like several different, I guess, modes. Like we want to give users a full like custodial mode when they just delegate their vote to us and we do this auto voting. But we have other modes where, for example, some of the VE tokens, they're actually VE NFTs, and those can be transferred into this manager solution. So it does the voting, but now we can also harvest the rewards on behalf of the users, consolidate them into one thing, and then we can also offer auto compounding. So Narak, to your question, like for the fully non-custodial version where only voting power is delegated, in those cases, we cannot auto compound on behalf of the users because we are not touching any of your assets, right? Like there is no asset touching. You'll see on contracts like the VE token sits in the user's wallets. And that's really neat because for a lot of VE tokens, like they're actually not tokens. You can't move them around, but they do have like this vote delegation feature. So like Aura with VL Aura would be the best example of that, I think. But yeah, so where I'm going with this is like this is a very modular solution to the problem of how do we help VE token holders, you know, do their thing, which is voting and getting rewards in a much easier and automated fashion. And we already know how to do this. Like we've been doing this with VL Aura for quite a long time now. And we won't, and this solution doesn't cost us anything in terms of like needing to create a wrapper that takes a fee. It doesn't require us to spin up a pool that we have to put incentives behind. It doesn't, you know, cost the user like any haircuts to enter exit, because again, like, it's not a liquid wrapper solution. This is purely a voting power managing solution. And yeah, we're hoping to roll these out for you probably have some good hints there already, right? Like things that have like the NFTs are very good appropriate targets for these. But yeah, essentially anything that has vote delegation on their VE token. And maybe I'll pause here in case somebody has any questions. And yeah, rambling just one more second, then we're hoping that this becomes like a real moat for, I guess, the hidden hand bright market. Like, so hidden hand itself is just a contract where people deposit bribes and the voters vote. But with the this new thing we're coming in, right? This voting manager. I don't know if we're allowed to leak the name.
No.
Maybe no. Okay, we'll
No
say
name
that another time. Yeah. But the voting manager helps make hidden hand the most efficient market, right? Like we get rid of these cases where somebody drops a bribe, towards the end of the epoch, and the voters don't see it, so they don't vote on it, and then the briber goes like, hey, what happened? Like I deposited money, but I didn't get any votes. Or, people swap out their votes like towards the end to do some weird things. But anyway, we're hoping that this just makes the whole product come together. And yeah, there is potentially like another thing, like we're thinking of it like it's a whole like bribing stack, like a trifecta. You have hidden hand, you have this voting manager, and in cases where it's still needed, we sometimes still need Pirex, a liquid wrapper. Sometimes that works for liquid wrappers aren't appropriate for every single like VE token out there, but sometimes it still makes a lot of sense, like for PXCVX, because you can get out, the peg can restore itself over the cycle of 16 weeks. And where we're going with this is like between hidden hand, the voting manager, and Pirex, for every single VE token out there, we will be able to pick at least one or two or potentially three of these tools to be able to build around other protocols and help them improve, right? So this becomes like a like really synergistic solution to it all. Like if there's a protocol out there where we can plug in all three pieces, right? We build hidden hand bribe market for them. So like all their partner protocols are depositing bribes there. We spin up the voting manager. So like all their VE token holders delegate to us and we manage that. And then like if needed, a Pyrex solution around their VE token, then in that case, like we control their whole stack, not in a nefarious way, right? It just means that everything is completely automated. Everything is the team doesn't have to do anything to get all these features and bribe support and all that. Like it is like a whole stack solution. And yeah, I feel like that gives long-term moat to this whole bribing business. Okay, that was the very long rant. And for the decentralizing part, there are bits of off-chain components, I believe, to the voting manager, but like over the long roadmap, there are definitely ways to even make those more decentralized. Like this is like way too early, but I saw some stuff regarding like autonomous or something where like DAOs can own pieces of code on chain that they pay people to run off chain in a quite trust minimized way. So like those are again, just saying like technically it's not impossible for even like these off chain things to become decentralized and operated by everyone. But yeah, I'll pause here.
Nice. Leaky stump speech from Karn. Cool. I mean, even if people have questions, there's only like so far I think we should probably go with it. So thanks, Karn, for the brain dump. I'm sure everybody here is excited about that. But yeah, I think that highlights how we're starting to think about things strategically going forward. And so we have some cool ideas. This is something that's been in the works for a bit. So yeah. Cool. Moving on. Let's talk a little bit about Pirex ETH, since I know that's what everybody here is kind of excited about. First things first, we are still in the auditing process, so I think we're a little bit on the home stretch here as far as like getting the audits done. I think we just had to make a few changes, and now we have to get those changes reviewed. Never could probably talk about it in a second, but basically, I think, you know, one of the things we want to be very careful about here is security. You know, we're starting to see some of the most like safe protocols ever get exploited. In the case of Curve, I guess it wasn't really their fault, but like Balancer, for example, having a vulnerability is also like a thing that makes people nervous. I think people are a little bit concerned about like the overall safety of some of the protocols in the space. So the more we can do to mitigate those concerns, the better. Especially given the potential for size when it comes to PXETH. Like this for sure is going to be one of our biggest protocols by TVL. And so we need to make sure that that TVL is as safe as possible. And even, you know, even audits aren't perfect. So we just really need to take our time with this. And that's part of the reason we are kind of moving slow with the audits, but also part of the reason we're doing a testnet deployment to kind of make sure all of the infrastructure works, make sure that users can interact with it, make sure that we could see, you know, how user behavior impacts the rest of the system, etc. Never, I don't know if there's anything you want to tack on to the sort of technical side of where we're at.
Yeah. Basically, we're on the home stretch of the on-chain audits, so that'll be like, you know, a couple more days, 2 days. I think by Monday we should have that, like all of our changes, like our finding changes re-audited and, I don't know, find it like frozen. Then we will like of course have to audit our like validator software. I mean, yeah, a lot of LSD projects, I don't know, they lean on the fact that it is the base layer, so that, like, you know, you're actually interacting with each protocol, so it's a bit safer than, you know, putting your TVL in another smart contract. But yeah, even, you know, there's bugs on base layers too, so like you have to like audit all the way down, or, you know, if you stop at like one layer, you can get fucked, like what happened to Curve. I mean, we probably don't need to go down as far as auditing, you know, like the Go compiler, but
yeah, let's do a Go compiler audit.
But at least as far down as it's feasible.
Yeah, makes sense. So Argas win testnet contracts, JK. Yeah, I mean, we're actually, you know, funny enough, we are working on a date right now, and I think we're very close. So you know, I think you guys should probably get details pretty soon. But I think this is also one of those things where I know we're being kind of quiet about stuff right now, but once things start moving, like they'll start moving really quickly, right? Like once we go from nothing live to white paper live to testnet live, like things will start moving quickly from there, because all of the hard stuff, it will be mostly done, right? So it's a matter of just like getting across that finish line. Launching in Q4, Q1 is much better than during summers. People are AFK most of the time then. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the best, I mean, with the way the market is right now, yeah, I don't know. Who knows? We'll just see how it goes. Also on the Ark, are you being a smartass right now? Talking shit? Let me share this. Terrence actually just posted this proposal. No, I'm just trolling you, Ark. Terrence just posted this proposal on the Mantle forum that shows we're kind of moving on the strategic front. So I think the idea here is that we are trying to get Mantle to allocate some ETH to PXETH. It's a bit of a long proposal, but I think most of it is just setting the stage about what Pirex ETH is and what the goal is. And I think our goal with Mantle is to get them to stake 50,000 ETH into PXETH to bootstrap DEX liquidity, establish PXETH pairings with Mantle's LST, and then Mantle ops to sending batch transactions with our sort of private mint pool when that is live. So you can kind of check that out, get some information on it. Also, if you're going to say anything on the forum, please, of course, be respectful, help people explain. I imagine not everybody in the Mantle community is familiar with Redacted, so just, make sure you're representing the community well if you go hang out there. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything anybody wants to add to that while we're up here?
Yeah, there's some questions on, well, these questions come up frequently, actually, like, have we talked to people about commits, and are we guaranteed X amount of TVL, and basically, like, obviously we've been having these conversations. We've been talking with a bunch of people about getting an idea of like what they want to deposit into the protocol, what we can expect from them, and I think it's going really well. And it's always better, I think, to like post these things when they're live, but after like how good some of the conversations have been going with some of these people, like this Mantle proposal is one of them. There's no need for us to actually just like keep it in the dark. I think we can already start the process of getting these, like, a lot of these people are actually like not DAOs, but for the ones that are taking the governance route, like a BitDAO / Mantle sort of project, you might see more of these starting to come up. And these guys have a fuck ton of ETH, right? They put 40,000 ETH into Lido. So let's see what we can do here. The conversations offline have been pretty good with some of the groups like this. So yeah, hoping that all goes well.
Sick. So yeah, somebody said why why Mantle in particular, and Karn kind of added a response here, but Mantle seems more open to deeper integration, so we're spinning up the dialogue. Yeah, and on top of that, Sammy just gave the other half of the answer, which is they have a shit ton of ETH. So when proposal for what to do with the butterfly gain from Olympus swap. So I guess we can move on to that. I mean, there's all the questions from the Mantle thing can be seen in the proposal itself. It's relatively straightforward, but yeah. So as far as the Olympus swap, I think just added everything to the escrow contract this morning, actually. Never, right? If I read the chat right. So
no, it's been executed.
Okay.
Yeah, which is like the larger portion. The rest will be another contract. Another transaction will be spun up to do for like the one that they've locked as RL. So like proportionally, we'll swap the GEOM.
Okay, cool. So either way, it's moving. It's moving forward. We got their signers rallied, and our signers rallied on the multi-sigs and stuff, and we're getting it move forward. As far as like a proposal for what to do with the butterfly, I mean, the original proposal kind of states that it's just going to go to the treasury. I think any proposal going forward won't be about that butterfly specifically. It would just be about butterfly in general. Like, we have butterfly now in the treasury. Where do we want to allocate it? Do we want to allocate it towards PXE stuff? Do we want to allocate it towards XYZ? So hopefully that answers that question. I don't think there's going to be a proposal specifically about the butterfly gain from the Olympus swap, because the original proposal outlines that it just goes back to the treasury. So from there, we just need to have a conversation about like what's the best way to use the treasury assets to grow Dinero, Pirex, ETH, etc. Make sense? Cool. Okay. If there are first, anybody up here, is there anything else we want to touch on before we wrap it up? Good.
Just related to the OHM thing, some people might have noticed, like, we pulled the liquidity for the OHM balancer, like butterfly pool. And if you're just seeing like stuff on chain, that's just like all direct results of the OHM proposal passing. So getting the swap underway, getting it all executed, and then we talked about some of the ideas of like getting that liquidity back in place like earlier on the call. So yep. Cool. That's it, really. If there's more questions on the OHM thing, like, you can always just ask them in the chat.
Cool. Any comments? Any comments on Dinero? Dinero's not real. I don't know. No comments on Dinero. I mean, that's what we just spent like the last half of the call kind of talking about. Pirex ETH is like phase 1 of Dinero, right? I think we're we're like breaking the entire Dinero release into 3 phases. Phase 1 obviously is Pirex ETH. So that whole conversation was kind of the Dinero update. As far as the system as a whole, everything is kind of staying true to you know, what we kind of outlined in the light paper. All good? Sweet. Yeah, no worries. I was just trolling you, man. Just joking. Cool. Sammy, were you gonna say something?
No, nothing.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for taking the time to come hang out. It's a pleasure as always. This one was gonna be shorter, but we ended up making it about 40 minutes long. So I appreciate everybody coming out. No joke. Yeah, no joke this week. We don't have any new people to harass, so maybe we need to hire some new people and give them a hard time. But yeah, anyways, I appreciate you all coming to hang out as always. I will get the recording up on Monday. So yeah, the joke is that Dinero is a real thing. But anyways, have a good weekend, everybody. Have a good Friday, and peace.